Republic of Kenya. We will proceed as we have been doing previously, starting with the usual prayer. Then the candidate will be brought in. And honorable members, the format of questioning the nominee remains in the structure we have been using. We should avoid the temptation to unnecessarily cozy with the nominee, even if you know them. Avoid the temptation to be abrasive to the nominee. Just ask questions and expect answers. Avoid any temptation to engage in any personal altercation, even when you may not be getting adequate answers, because the verdict still remains yours, and it will always be more fair if we treat people fairly. I'll now invite the clerk to lead us in a word of prayer.
Right Honorable Speaker, our Deputy Speaker, the leadership of Majority and Minority Party, honorable members of the Committee on Appointments, colleagues in the Secretariat, may I request that we bow for a word of prayer. Almighty God, who in your wisdom and goodness have appointed the offices of leaders and parliaments for the welfare of society and just government of the people, we beseech you to behold with your abundant favor as your servants whom you have been pleased to call to the performance of important trust in this republic. Let your blessings descend upon us here assembled, and grant that we treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote your honor and glory, and to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those interests you have committed to our charge. Amen.
Amen. So, Sergeant, bring in the nominee. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker.
Welcome to this Committee of Parliament. This is a committee on appointments. It's a constitutional and statutory committee, grounded also in the standing orders of Parliament. It's a committee that will interact with you to assess your suitability or otherwise in going to the office of Cabinet Secretary, to which the President has nominated you as Cabinet Secretary for East African Community Affairs and Regional Development. This committee is chaired by the Speaker of the National Assembly, yours truly here. On my right is my Deputy Speaker, the Honorable Gladys Boss. On my left is the Clerk of the National Assembly, Samuel Njoroge. At the background there are part of our support staff. I'll now invite the members of the committee to introduce themselves.
Naisula Lesuda, MP Samburu West.
Junet Mohammed, MP Suna East.
David Kosing, MP Pogost.
Mary Emase, MP Teso South.
Abdul Rahim Daud, MP Northi Mentimeru.
George Gitonga Murugara, MP Tharaka Nithi.
Owen Baya, MP Kilifi North.
Robert Mbui, MP Kadiani.
Stephen Mule, MP Matungulu.
Didoraso, MP Saku.
Abdi Shurie, MP Balambala, Garissa County.
Mishimbako, MP Likoni.
Rehab Mukami, County MP Nyeri.
We have some other MPs who probably are on the way. We've seen the weather is not very good out there. You are Beatrice Askul Moe.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Have I pronounced your name correctly?
Yeah, it's called Beatrice Askul Moe.
Moe,
Thank
yes,
you.
correct. Welcome once again. You will interact with us on oath. So I'll invite you, depending on your faith, to take the Bible or the Holy Quran or the Holy Book of the Hindu religion. Which one?
The Bible, Mr. Speaker. Sir.
Bible. So be upstanding, take the Bible in your right hand, and recite the oath that you will be shown.
I, Beatrice Askul Moe, do swear that the evidence I shall give before this committee on the matter under its consideration shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
Thank you. You may take your seat and sign to the oath. Documents, give them to the sergeant to pass them on to the clerk to cross-check whether they correspond with what is in our possession. Having done that, I'll now invite the Deputy Speaker to be the first to ask you. Sorry. I'll invite you, Beatrice, to introduce yourself to the committee and to the country. People are watching. Tell us your name, your educational background, your work experience, and any key competencies that make you feel you are suitable for appointment to the office as Cabinet Secretary. In 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I'm called Beatrice Askul Moe. That is my current marital name. Previously, I used to be called maiden name Beatrice Askul Nakusa. Both are my names. First and foremost, I would like to really thank God the Almighty for speaking to the soul of our leadership to consider me in this appointment. And my thanks goes to His Excellency the President, Dr. William Ruto, for feeling it better for me to be the person appointed for this opportunity to serve this Kenya, if appointed. Currently, I'm married. I'm a mother of 3. Back to my personal status and education. And before that, I will speak how I was born. I'm born in Lokichar, Turkana South Sub-County, Turkana County, in a place called Kapese. Kapese is family known for the oil block, Block 10 BB. If you remember the Talo exploration thing, that is the area where I was born. By the late parents, mom and dad, may their soul rest in eternal peace. Thereafter, I went to Lokchar Mixed Primary School. After finishing my class 8, I was called in St. Joseph's Chepterit Girls High School in Kapsabet, Nandi County. I started Form 1 up to Form 3. Reaching Form 3, by then when we were called, there was special allocation for girls who would join provincial school or national school within the county in terms of the needy ones. I was privileged to be one of those who are considered when I was called at Chepterit Girls High School, Kapsabet. So I enjoyed the privilege of being supported by that fund up to Form 3. I don't know what really happened. When we were now reporting Form 4, it was too unfortunate that we were told the fund has come to an end for political reasons. By then, being a student could not even tell what it is to be political in disconnecting your future. So that is what happened. A number of us were affected. Number of students that were supported in the alliance schools, big schools, national schools were affected. So what finally happened was I sat home. I stayed home for 9 months, and it was simply because I had no way out. Because even as we were in school primary, we were using the school feeding program to support ourselves. Because that is when I had a school feeding program, I always know what it means to be fed to go to school, or to go to school in order to get food. Now along the way, you get advantage of getting to school, or even to learn. So after that, I felt like I can't wait anymore. I had to register myself privately in Kitale High School, one of the schools in Kitale, just to finish. So after finishing, I had shortly to join Oxfam as a food relief monitor, just to make ends meet. I only did that for 1 year. And then thereafter, I decided to go to Kobuje Social Development Training Institute, where I did my certificate. And all this was because the government institutions were less in Turkana. There were more of churches, institutions, and non-governmental organizations. So any training you would go realigning with the opportunity around the place. And the opportunity was to serve either in a church institution or to serve in an organization that is an NGO. So after that, I had to get a job. After the training of the certificate, I had to be employed with AMREF. That other experience, I'll not speak about it. Okay, thereafter, I went to Catholic University of Eastern Africa. I graduated. And then thereafter, I had to do my master's degree in governance and ethics. It is at graduation level. I have finished theory. I have cleared, only that I'm waiting to graduate. Now, on the side of experience, I worked as a relief food monitor with Oxfam. After my training with Kobuje Development Training Institute, I joined AMREF Research Kenya, AMREF Kenya, that a program that was dealing with livestock and eye-darted disease. And it was basically in the northern part of Turkana, by then the greater Turkana North. And then thereafter, I was able to be appointed in the Rift Valley Water Services Board as a director. The first attempt was, I was interested to really getting into the nitty-gritty of development in terms of what is going on within the management. So I happened to be picked as the chair for audit, which I served for 1 year. And then thereafter, I managed my way to become again the chair for technical, because I really wanted to influence policies and the things that would really work out something different in Turkana, because I had a better ground of what it was to benefit from government institutions. So thereafter, I was able now to join county government of Turkana as a CEC in charge of water, agriculture, irrigation, and reclamation. And that was then the bigger ministry in the entire, though thereafter they had to split it and even have 2 chief officers and are working under one CEC. So thereafter, I now became free to, after that I became free to join, to listen more on political happenings of the country. So I was close, I was in ODM, so I was following things around the party. Up to this moment, that is what I can say.
Thank you, Beatrice. I'll now invite the Deputy Speaker to ask you the first question.
Thank you, Mrs. Moy. Kenya's arid and semi-arid lands have suffered documented historical marginalization. Currently, there's a lot of attention on climate change and climate resilience, and therefore, the docket to which you're nominated, the East African Community, the ASAL region and regional development, is actually at the center of this. if approved, what is your vision in respect to this historical marginalization of those areas, and how will you help steer that vision of ensuring that there is climate resilience and more speedier development in those regions? Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Madam, it is true, arid lands where I belong, fortunately, Turkana falls under arid lands, has suffered many years of marginalization, and I tend to believe I saw that happen because I was present and I'm present where these things were being done. The marginalization that is coming to these arid lands is specifically on the stereotype and the information and the media that has reflected us in a very negative way. I also know we've never benefited. The arid lands have never benefited. Sorry to speak like this because I am also an arid person, so I've been a victim of these things. So sometimes when I say I mean the circumstances through which I also grew is relevant. So what we need to do right away to make sure this marginalization and everything else is working to the realization of climate resistance is incorporating the arid lands, the policies, the people, and everything else into negotiating, talking, and then have their issues raised in a way that it will finally come to the ministry at headquarters for policy influence. The pastoralists actually are the most that get effects of drought. They get effect of drought. They lose animals. They lose socioeconomic activity. They totally get affected out of this climate change. So by incorporating them into the bigger plan of the ministry, they will be able to speak from what they know, and they will be able to get better attention and better resolutions to the effect of this drought in a manner that would actually make them cope with what they are going through all the time. And also making sure, because it is one of the areas that is more affected in terms of receiving the impact of climate change, they need really to be cushioned in a way that they will be able to survive around these areas because they can't go away. That is their home place. That is where they know better. So by incorporating, it means we go and get homegrown issues that would be captured within the policy level. And even when we are talking of cushioning them during the drought, actually that would mean whatever that is supposed to be for them must be taken down to where they can feel and utilize it. So I feel the policies that are supposed to enhance climate resistance, the ability to cope, should actually incorporate, be from the top, down, down, up, so that at least there is that movement up, down, incorporating themselves.
Majority Leader, you've just come in. Are you ready to ask a question? Go
Yes,
ahead.
thank you. Just for the benefit of the nominee, my name is Kemani Shongwa. And Beatrice, I see you have a very rich background in social work, and you also mentioned you worked with Oxfam as a relief food officer. And I'm certain you know part of your work in this ministry will involve the procurement and distribution of relief food. But this is one area that has been riddled with a lot of malpractices, especially the procurement and distribution. I'd want to hear what you would do if you are approved by this committee to ensure, one, that we have a very accountable system of procurement of the relief food and how it will be distributed on the ground to make sure that it gets to the right people, not benefiting government officers who are charged with the responsibility of distributing it. Two, I don't see in your CV and your work experience any experience touching on trade matters. And you know the EAC docket with the East African community, trade is very critical. And part of the problems we have encountered in the recent past is having the government of Kenya not being present to negotiate on behalf of the country with the EAC countries. And we see an influx, especially of agricultural products, from onions, from our neighboring countries, potatoes, at times maize. Farmers in the south and North Rift, where you come from, suffer with their maize, and they can't market their maize because cheaper maize is coming from our neighbors in the region. What specific measures will you put in place to make sure that you negotiate for Kenya so that properly at the EAC to get exemptions on the tariff barriers that are there? to make sure that our farmers are protected. Finally, I see you are a member of the selection panel of the Azimio running mate selection panel. That, and I'm asking this question because it would have a bearing on your decision-making abilities and capability. Do you think you made the right decision in your running mate decision in Azimio?
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mheshimiwa Majority Leader, Mr. Kimani. Now, on procurement on relief foods. Actually, the procurement process does not really have to be specific to the relief food. Procurement processes under finance are very clear, they are well stipulated, and the procedures must be followed in the sense that if a particular government, a particular institution would want to feed the people, and you've decided on a particular product to take to the people, what you do is you just advertise as it's been, you do all those procedures up to where you award the tender to distribute. And now after that, by the trickle down and up effect that we are saying, let's incorporate the communities down and then influence what happens here, originating from them. What we will do, we will produce a list of the potential beneficiaries or those ones that need to be helped or to be cushioned from the drought. Then those ones, lists that informs those that will benefit. Because the story to do with whether food reach the people or not, it's sometimes the making of the careless people because they think God in heaven is not watching. It is just good to be truthful. When it is time to feed the people, buy the food, make sure it reaches the most vulnerable members of the society. So for me, the procurement process is still as it is in the other ministries, in the other public finance management acts.
Maybe before she moves away from that question, Beatrice, particularly what I want to hear, I don't know if you have been briefed from the ministry, what happens? In the procurement of relief food, they will usually go to some organization called the supplies branch. They pre-qualify people as suppliers of relief food with set prices. Then when they are procuring, they will usually just give tenders to those who are already pre-qualified within the system. But from the time the supplies branch is pre-qualifying people, the prices given vary. For instance, a bag of maize or beans a year ago or 9 months ago may not be the price today. What I want to hear in terms of getting value for money for the people of Kenya, will we continue with the same old system through supplies branch, or will you come in with new thinking to make sure that the procurement process is very transparent, you are able to match with the market prices? Because there's no reason buying a bag of maize for 6,000 shillings or when the current market price is 4,000 shillings, simply because the people who are pre-qualified by the supplies branch were pre-qualified at a time when the prices were 6,000. That's what I would want to hear. What new innovation, what new thinking are you bringing to the ministry?
Thank you, Mheshimiwa Kimani. My understanding is...
So address them through this, the chair.
Through the chair?
Yes.
Through the speaker?
Yes.
Sir. Okay, I get you. Now, I think what we need to do is, of course, there are malpractices that people have gotten used to. And having been a relief monitor, the process are very clear, just like the way you would procure. Of course, there is pre-qualification. But again, value for money should be informed by the market prices, such that you don't bring people that escalate or put the prices up for other value, yet the market price does not go along with it. I think if you'll be approved by this committee, I'll make sure I'll be myself present in terms of, if this is the pre-qualification, what is the market price, so that we get value for money. And then on the side of trade, whether I have knowledge of trade, through the chair, through the, Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm used to, sorry. Mr. Speaker, sir, I would want to say that maybe the issue of trade is not really captured in my CV, but I can assure you I'm from Turkana, where we ourselves trade with the community from Sudan, which is part of the state member of EAC, and we've also traded with a community from Uganda, which is also a member state of EAC. So when it comes to trade, there are two ways of doing it. One, There's that one of barter trade where you are like commodity, I exchange for other commodities. There are also where monetary currency is involved. So, but sometimes even as we speak of procurement being having variance in prices, I still believe even in the trade, the commodities that are brought, we must also study, because this commodity is not centralized in a place. It is all agricultural, sorry?
Nominee.
Yes, Speaker.
You didn't get his question.
Okay.
East African community, like all other regional trade blocs, trade is governed by rules. It's not about getting a bag of maize and cross to Sudan and come back with a cow, or vice versa. It is a trade regime that is complex, dealing with customs, movement of goods, who produces what, who sells what. And when the East African community countries come together, they formulate rules that govern how we trade with each other to give advantage to everybody. So his question is, your CV doesn't have anything to do with that kind of regime. If you find favor with the committee and get this office, how are you going to handle East African affairs, knowing, and this has come up before, that Kenya is a poor negotiator at the table of trade with its partners, that we have that history. What are you going to do to improve our bargaining chip at the table of trade negotiations? That is the question that the majority leader was asking you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will answer that. Anything that is falling under...
Speaker, probably even just to put it in layman's terms. For instance, between us and our neighboring country, Tanzania, there are onions that come from there. The people of Loitoktok and Kieni are growing onions. But because of the EAC common markets, we don't levy duties on products coming from, no taxes are paid on products coming from Tanzania. We also take our products, like you are saying, you take your products to Sudan without paying duty, they bring their products without paying duty. But we need to protect our onion farmer in Loitoktok and in Kieni. And why we have failed as a country is because we don't negotiate properly at the EAC Council of Ministers to protect our farmers. Because it's possible to exempt and say, for this particular product, our country is disadvantaged and we need to levy duty so that what is coming from Tanzania becomes more expensive to protect our local farmers. It is that, what I wanted to know is, what would you do now to negotiate better? Do you have the appropriate negotiation skills to go and negotiate for Kenya?
Through the Speaker, actually what is happening normally when the two parties that are supposed to be enjoying their own sovereignty are involved, what you do, you really have to have the skill of communicating, negotiating, consulting, so that at least you come to an agreement on give and take. Because I personally feel there's nothing impossible when the willing hearts sit. And of course, we already know so much of what is happening in the world has come out of negotiation, consulting, reviewing. So if I happen to be appointed to this docket, that will be my work. I will make sure the partners, my equals in those countries, are able to agree. We can share the report because I know we are beginning from somewhere. We are not starting from a plain ground. Actually, we will have the concept of what may have happened, and then we discuss based on that to do give and take so that our own customers, our own, because of course something, when a product comes cheap, it is good to their customers, but bad to the producer who is doing the same locally. So what we need to do is, we need a situation where the producer does not take advantage of the consumer, and the consumer as well do not suffer, but again are able to accommodate and get these products at a price of give and take. And for Kenya, definitely being a Kenyan representative at that time, if that time come to pass, then it will be my role to get into the trade, negotiate with those people, agree, of course, as consulting also with our own farmers on something that we will put on the table as they put theirs. So we agree finally on what the policy that would govern that free trade without disadvantaging any part of the country.
Your questions?
The one of the Azimio is left.
Yes, go ahead.
Through the chair, through the speaker, that was then. That was then that I was among the panelists that were able to choose the deputy party leader of our party person then. Actually, you know, sometimes you work things as they appear on the table. I did fairness. Every party that was there had their representatives. They had their candidates also wanting the same. So there was no way I would take over. It's only issues that, as you said, issues on the table. We agreed, and we said the parameters of somebody who would suit a running mate should be like this, and those are the binding grounds through which people were vetted. And the person we got had what it took, because it was not the Hodiam that picked, it was all political membership that decided the vet. I was only one person from Hodiam, the rest are from the other representatives of the parties. So I tell you, whatever happened, happened because there were benchmark through to operate. I was right at that time.
In any case, it was a political decision.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, Junet?
Mr. Speaker, just to add to it, actually, I'm the one who appointed her to that committee. And I was satisfied with her work. She did a fantastic job. But anyway, that's beside the point. No, Kalonzo was going to become the president, up and belly. Anyway, Mr. Speaker, that is not the issue. I want to ask her, as somebody who has lived in Askul area, and you know very well that people in that area, as the Deputy Speaker has asked, have suffered for many years. And most of the time, they complain that they don't get any help from government. But today, you have been nominated from an Askul area to deal with those issues that affect those people who come from Askul area and from regions that feel marginalized in this country, despite devolution being in place and counties being in place that money is devolved. What different are you going to do if you are approved by this committee to help those people who live in the Askul areas? And secondly, you are going to become, if you are approved, the Minister for the East African Community. And you can see the community is growing. It used to be 6 in number. I think now they are 8 or something. DRC has joined. Somalia has joined. How are you going to harness the potential in that community, which now has close to 500 million people in terms of numbers? How will that be, helpful to you if you are approved as a minister by this committee? Thank you very much.
Through the speaker.
Go ahead.
Being an Askul person, one who grew in a Askul, I tend to believe I have what it takes through my own personal experience and through what I was seeing people do in that area. Pastoralists are good people. Pastoralists, if you recognize, if they are made to understand things and then you are there to explain. Pastoralists are good people. They can adopt new initiatives when sensitized. If created an awareness, they can implement things that would be implemented elsewhere. So what I mean by me being there, I'll make sure they're involved in all these things that would improve their lives. Actually, I will be speaking from a point of information on what has been going on. As a pastoralist, I will be better placed to use my experience and my upbringing to make sure these communities actually get what they deserve without being traumatized the way they used to be. The information that is in circulation has never favored them. It is full of stereotyping. It is just too negative, poor publicity and very negative publicity. When I'll be on board, I will make sure the right information is given, the right analysis is given, so that their lives is going to be improved. At least be sure their own will be on board. And the information and anything that they would want to have will be truly from my personal life, personal experience. So be assured that one will be well done. Now, on the side of the growing economy of East Africa community, just as it is always written in the world of economy, you need numbers to grow the economy. You need a population that would do production. You need, again, a population that would consume what is produced. So if we grow and grow more, that will be to the advantage of the community, because we will have many targets around, they will have many supplies, we will have the mode of trade will really be up to it, because the people that will be producing and the people consuming and the people trading across each member state will be a good population that will grow economy in terms of value.
Thank you, Beatrice. Now we'll take batches of 2, 2, 2, or 3, then you answer. I'll start with Naisula. One question.
Thank you, Speaker. I want to know from the nominee, in case you're approved by this committee and the National Assembly, how you will walk the tight balance between protecting the interests of our country while at the same time taking care of the interest of the community. You know, there are allegations and misconceptions or conceptions that, you know, Kenya and other countries in the community compete, like Tanzania, DRC, Somalia, on other interests. So how will you walk that tight balance between the interest countries and the community's interest? The last question is on issue of relief food. Is it sustainable that in 2024 we are still talking about food, relief food and tendering processes in the areas, the ASAL areas?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and the nominee Honorable Askul. I want to know, Mr. Speaker and Chairman, how will the nominee balance, or how will the nominee gain confidence now that she has been appointed in the office of East Africa, and particularly on the ASAL, coming from one of the communities which fight other communities in the North Rift and in the entire ASAL? I want to know how she will gain confidence, because now many people are watching, and of course she knows the Pokos and the Turkanas are perennial and God-given enemies, and also the Samburus and the Turkanas.
God does not give enemies.
That is what we believe, Honorable
That's
Speaker.
not a statement.
Maybe you will change our thinking, but that is our thinking. So, Honorable Speaker, the nominee is being watched by the ASAL communities a lot. How will she address that issue of the conflict in the ASAL for them to gain confidence from her? Number two, the regional development agencies. These regional agencies, Honorable Speaker, there's been a thinking that these regional agencies are doing what counties are supposed to be doing. They should have actually disappeared and or work for counties. Now that they work in national government, and perhaps now, and in this case, should Parliament approve her, they will work under her. She comes from the counties that believe that these agencies should work for counties. What is her opinion, Honorable Speaker, on these regional agencies?
Yes, nominee, we'll take Gikaria, or you'll rest a bit. Okay, answer those two.
Thank you. Through the Speaker.
And relax, don't be tense. Don't be...
I'm okay, Mr.
Yes,
Speaker.
just relax.
I'm okay.
And answer the questions as they come.
Mr. Speaker, I was only thinking that once there are 4 questions, and then I answer that one, then invite another
Now
one.
answer Naisula's 2 questions and Posing's question.
Through the Chair, the question by Mheshimiwa Naisula is on the country interest versus the community interest. Above all, I acknowledge the fact that the country is the appointing authority. And within the appointing authority, there is sovereignty of Kenya that needs to be protected. There's political interest of Kenya that needs to be protected. And I equally believe even those that are representing the community elsewhere have their own thing to protect. But now, in terms of the big agenda, Kenya being mentioned as the state that is dividing, that is pushing hard, not dividing, pushing hard for the full realization of East Africa community affairs, I believe it will not be like me alone. We will consult with the other teams. We will work on a joint decision. We will collaborate on affairs that would add value to the growth. Because at that time, it will not like I will be favoring them and disadvantaging the country, or disadvantage the country and favor them. Whatever way, I will be firm in terms of what is good for all of us as a country and as a point that would propel the growth of the community. So I will make sure it is balanced, but of course underneath, I will also know I have to protect the interests and the sovereignty of the Republic of Kenya.
On relief food.
On relief food, whether it is sustainable. Actually, for those who supply relief food to us, when they cushion us from the tough droughts, they are doing us a good service. But if we evaluate the period through which we have been having relief foods, there's nothing really much sustainable about it. I would explore a situation where we get alternatives, like putting a market to a choice where when you give like a safety net provision to the beneficiaries, they are able to go and buy things of their choice. Because I believe at that specific time, I also believe relief food is not well, it's not, if you look at the money they used to procure relief foods is so much that would be turned into an activity in a good season. Like for example, if we have it's only in bad weather that relief food are important. But in good weather, the same money would be turned into an activity that would sustain the people positively in terms of investing food production, investing in the know-how, and how people would cushion themselves from the effect of the drought. But again, this habit of staying till they are bad enough to relieve, that is what is making our tribe, our communities in Asal not to really have good image, because the pictures, everything at that moment of relief is terrible. But I wish we would turn that positively and say, instead of waiting for the bad moment to act, can we then use what would have been used to improve their lives when they are still healthy and good enough to run their affairs? So for me, it's not sustainable. It needs a better look of it.
Go to the next question.
Mheshimiwa posing question.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, honorable member should understand, I once served in the board of Rift Valley Water Services Board, which Pokot County fall under. So, and if it gets back to the records of what we used to supply to give that community in terms of water services, I had it as a Turkana then. I have never changed. The heart that I used to implement is the same heart that will still implement this. After all, I am only a Turkana by community, but by heart and everything else, I'm a Kenyan. I don't think if there's any Kenya, would deserve another Kenya, just because you cattle rustle each other or do things. Point 2, on regional development agencies. My take of this is the regional development agencies have mandate that they had before devolution. But in the event that some of their functions are overlapping with counties, I would want a situation where we will look at what exactly are the regional development authorities doing as a role, vis-a-vis what counties are implementing. Because being a regional development agency, for example, let me use one that is in my place and my Mheshimiwa Posing's place, called KVDA. KVDA crosses 3 counties or 4. In this regional development, we always believe the project that will be implemented cuts across those counties. So that means if we talk of what people had proposed that the devolved function should be handed over to the county, in a situation where one project is cutting across 3 counties, which county in particular do you devolve this function to? So it will be difficult to have one project divided into 3 counties because the project they may have had before is cutting across several counties. So for me, even if a function is devolved, what we better do is, let's make sure the bigger projects are done within the regions and the smaller projects be done in the county. In the event that the project implemented is cutting across 3 counties, the best for the region is, because I don't believe they will be doing smaller projects, region projects should be big enough to guarantee the region name called by them. So I think what we need to do is, if it is cutting across counties, then it is the representative of those counties that should be incorporated in the management of the region. That is my take. Other than saying, let's keep over everything and make sure it goes down. We also have to look at the capacities of counties. What counties can do, we'll allow them to do. What they can't do, we then, because the devolved function does not really make a county different from national, because they are still under the central government, they are still under the regional government. At least at the end of the day, we need to regulate the policies, framework through which they will be operating. And for me, regions should be there to undertake big works, and if they do small works, then they better devolve. But if they are going for big projects that are cutting across counties, that incorporate other development activities beyond in a big way, then we need to maintain them. And in the event that there is a need for counties to be involved, then let the representation of county be in the policy level of that regional thing. So that is what I would say.
Can I make a follow-up question? That does not forfeit my opportunity to ask my question. Nominee, I hear you speak passionately about regional development and that they should go ahead. But you see, there is a framework in law the counties are formed by the Constitution, and then you have the Regional Development Act, which sets out these regional developments. It is regulated by law. So it is not at your position to say you will allow them to go to do you think there is need to amend the statutes so that we align the operations to the Constitution? Probably that will now give us an idea of how you'll operate if appointed. Do you think there is need for a review, amendment, or even removing the law completely so that we allow the Constitution to succeed because it is the mother law of the land?
Through the speaker, sir, I never said I drop, because as we speak, I'm only here to seek the favor of this committee to be appointed. So I cannot go ahead and say it should be removed. I'm here to get that affirmation. My concern is the issue of devolved functions and duplication of services. But having come from a particular background of being a county government staff, I know capacities within counties on what they can comfortably handle and what they cannot handle in terms of the expertise involved, the magnitude of the project that we may want to realize in regional agencies. My issue is, if the report that is informing this discussion is already on board, because I'm still outside till approved, if the information informing need whether to devolve it or to put it within the state agencies is informing the fact that they should review, why not? They can review the function, they can review balance works, so that now we see whether the information that would be before us would advise otherwise. So for me, I'm not saying we drop or we maintain. I'm only saying if the report informing what is being discussed will favor devolving, we devolve. It will favor the fact that we need to review activities that are undertaken by the regional development authorities, then we do that. Thank you.
Mary Mase, Dawood, and Murugara in that order.
Thank you, through the speaker. Nominee, I want to hear your thoughts on the current East African Community funding mechanism, considering the fact that there are challenges already with the existing funding policy. We have partner states that are not honoring their obligation of remittances. So what alternative funding mechanisms would you be looking at if affirmed to this position?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. To the nominee, Madam Beatrice, I believe you have heard of the Equalization Fund, which was in Article 204 of the Constitution. Since establishment of the Equalization Fund, I believe it is about 14 billion, which has been allocated but has not been disbursed. Recently, in the last parliament, the law was changed from the areas which it was being disbursed to. Now it is going to locations and not counties, as was previously the case. My question to you would be, do you think it was the right decision that it goes to locations, or would you suggest that it goes back to the way it was? Because there is talk that it is not serving, it will not serve the purpose what it was meant for. So what do you think about it? And where do you think the Equalization Fund should be used, basically? Is it in the water, electricity, roads, health facilities, or where do you think it should be used? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And nominee, we see more ways to be caught unawares as a government by whether the disasters that we experience in the country, like droughts, or even when with blessings from God, including heavy rains and floods. The net effect of both of them is lamentations that we are crying to the world out there to come and help us because we were not ready for this. If we harnessed the rains properly, we would actually possibly ameliorate the effects of droughts drastically. What are you likely to do as the cabinet secretary in charge of ASAS as regards all these rains that we experience, which possibly we don't make use of, followed by lengthy droughts where we lose almost everything we own. What policies are you likely to put in place to ensure that there is a balance between the two?
Go ahead and answer those three.
Through the chair, on the Honorable Mary's question on AU funding, and some of the state members not remitting what they had agreed within the memorandum of partner states. My portion is countries, we can't assume that sometimes when the particular state do not remit, it's their own making sometimes. The issue of inflation and the rate at which economy is moving may not be favoring maybe some of these countries that are not remitting. Or even the countries that are remitting does not really tell that the economy around them is doing fine in terms of complying with what they had agreed. My portion of it is it then possible within the framework of what to be implemented to make sure we look at the alternative ways of fundraising, so that we as a member state of East Africa community explore to benchmark from institutions that have done similar services like African Union, so that we get to know which approaches are they using to sustain themselves, so that we can benchmark. And then what happens is we also need to talk to the member states to make sure once they agree and comply with what has been agreed, they better follow it and implement to the most effect of it. So for me, if a state is not complying by remitting what was meant to be remitted, then it is upon the negotiating team that would be there through East Africa Legislative or through the Council of Ministers at the East Africa Community to engage that country and see why are they not remitting. Because the moment they refuse or they fail to remit what is supposed to be remitted, that probably would mean now the slowing down of activities that would have benefited from the funding. So I think there is need to look for alternative funding. There's also need to look to benchmark on the units that have applied a similar principle and see how we can learn and how to capture some of the things they may have followed and then to sustain themselves, like for example the African Union approach as a benchmarking unit. That is what I would suggest. Or sometimes we can decide as member states to say, like, this is just about a suggestion, that if there are revenue to be accrued or taxes to be put on any import that is coming from non-East Africa community members, if something is imported outside the membership, is it then, if we agree, put a policy, a framework that would put a small charge that will automatically be put as a finance sustained way within the East Africa community. I'm just proposing that and I'm suggesting that, which is subject to deliberation within the partner states. Now on equalization fund. Equalization fund, as it was in the provision of the Constitution, was meant to tackle particular basic needs within communities and counties that were not at par in terms of development. For example, counties were supposed to use equalization fund in the provision to do a bit of education, to take care of water, to take care of roads, to take care of health, to take care of electricity. And this money was supposed to go directly to, I assumed it must have been the money for counties. And because of the many things that were not very clear then, it kept not being taken down. My question is, equalization fund, by virtue of their own targets, target a service that touches the life of a citizen of Kenya. So if this equalization fund, because education as it is as a component in equalization fund, has the Ministry of Education, it has the Ministry of Water, it has the Ministry of Roads, it has the Ministry of Health, it has the Ministry of that leads. So is it then possible to conglomerate all these systems, all these ministries, to talk and see, of course, engaging the legislative arm of government, that is you people here, to make sure the best approach is considered, so that we see, do we have to maintain it this way, or do you have to take this money to the locations? And for me, because it is still a debate, we need to incorporate all the ministries that touch, that their own activity touch on equalization fund. Issues on disaster or drought, and then in the country that seems to be taking people unaware. Actually, in my view, I feel people are not serious when it comes to handling of disasters and droughts, because I believe there are institutions in this republic that give early warning reports. NDMA gives early warning reports on the potential and the likely effect of the climate and the effects of droughts, all those things. If we would only utilize the report in early enough within the context of early warning to make sure the best is planned before, the best is prepared before the thing strikes us. But in the event that drought has come, the opposite of drought has always happened in Kenya. Like there's a season for drought, and again there's a season for floods. I wish we would get down and discuss when we have plenty, the runoffs, the water that find their way to the lakes, that find their way to the oceans, then capture before it gets spoiled. Because as it goes down the rivers, it is fresh. Once it gets to the lake, gets to the ocean, it begins another process. Are we then, if we are serious with managing ourselves, managing disasters, are we then able to capture this water before it reaches the final destiny through maybe water harvest, and then turn that into food production?
Nominee, now tell us. Forget about we.
Oh.
You have been nominated, and if you find favor, you will become the CS. When you sit in that office, it is not we now. It is you, the CS. What will you do so that those extremes don't become a constant nightmare for our country?
Mr. Speaker, the reason why...
When there is drought, we die. When there is rain, we die.
Mr. Speaker, we need to utilize the water in this. The reason why I use we is because I will not work alone. There are departments under which we will work together. There are technocrats that will bring their expertise into this. For the sake of this presentation, allow me to use we, meaning now the entire system that is supposed to intercept in reducing drought effects and those disasters in this community. I think what we need to do is, if I'm appointed or approved by this committee, I will be able to look at the measures that are sustainable and how to do water harvest instead of just leaving it go downstreams. The other thing is alternative means of survival. Like if you utilize a report of early warning, that would mean now we will prepare our people to caution themselves from the hard effects that may come through maybe sensitization or making them grow alternative livelihoods so that we don't wait thousands of cows to go down and then bring relief food, so that again we work around what they know to perfect the system and to caution them from the bigger effects. So for me and my team, and that's why I was using we, allow us to work around modality that incorporates all partners in this, to talk about it and come up with a solution. And that will be my work, to make sure we mobilize all partners that deal with the disaster, drought effects, to put their brains together and come up with projects that would reduce the effect without necessarily having Kenyans to lose lives.
Thank you. Owen, Robert, and Mule, in that order.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, I would like to ask the following question to the nominee that I'll talk about the East African community. Honorable Speaker, the East African community, we have a chair. I don't know whether you know who the chair is, the current one. And what is the protocol that is used for electing the chairman of the East African community? The protocol. The second one is you will be, if appointed, you'll be our top diplomat within the East African community, apart from the Foreign Affairs Minister, but you'll be our top East African diplomat. And you know we have the Political Federation Protocol. As it is right now, there are a lot of tensions among member states, where Uganda and Rwanda regarding border issues. You have Kenya and Uganda on the Migingo, which is also another border issue. You have the M23 rebels in DRC Congo that is pulling in Rwanda. You have the Kenya-Somalia territorial water dispute that has gone up to the highest court of the world. And then you have internal conflicts between Burundi and Rwanda. Based on this, do you think East Africa is likely to achieve a political federation? And do you have knowledge of the political federation protocol on the East African community, and how far are we in that protocol to getting a political federation? And lastly, Honorable Speaker, I've checked your educational background. I realize a gap. You start from a trade test to a certificate, then there's a gap, then you have a degree, then you have a master's. So how did you obtain a degree without a linking diploma? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Madam Nominee, while answering Honorable Mary's question on alternative funding, I heard you mention that you would be proposing taxes so that they can be able to be used to support the community. And be careful, Kenyans are very uncomfortable with any mention of additional taxes. I have two issues. One is the Ministry of EAC is an important ministry, because I think what part of the protocol is that every one of the partner states has to have that ministry as a standalone ministry. Although Kenya, we have connected it also with ourselves. How do you believe Kenya benefits or continues to benefit from being in the East African community, noting that sometimes some of the trade agreements are not in our favor? So I'd like a clear answer on that one. And secondly, this is basically coming from the public since we started vetting. And you have served as in the Rift Valley Water Service Board as a director from 2008 to 2012. You also were a CEC in Turkana County government from 2013 to 2016. More or less, you have actually been working for the public and earning your pay from taxpayers. Now, the thing that public has been helping us to do in vetting is the issue of net worth, and they have been very, very particular. You've noticed all the headlines. Every time we have vetting, the main issue of concern is the value or the net worth of the individuals that we have been vetting. I've gone through your CV. You are saying you have a net worth of 100 million. I would like you to probably just to allay the fears of the public so that they don't think that you got this from Turkana County when you worked as CEC, to just tell us how did you acquire it? Because every time we have mention of money, people think that is all stolen money. So you need to explain to them how you acquired this money and that you've been paying your taxes appropriately, so that we can put this matter to rest. And you're doing this because of all the other candidates that have come before us who never got this question. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Welcome, nominee. A quick one is that East Africa community has a common market protocol of free movement of labor. And you know very well, in this country we have a huge batch of youth who are seeking for employment. What measures are you going to put in place to ensure that this free movement of labor does not come to disadvantage our youth within the country, that is Kenya? And secondly, as you are joining this ministry, if you are approved, I want to hear your mind on the East African Development Bank, whereby it is a bank run by the state partners, and sometimes as legislators, we have been not able to get clarity on the investment in this bank, the loan portfolio in this bank, and the capital investment of this bank within Kenya. Leave the other states within Kenya, because you'll be representing Kenya when it comes to that. And last, we are aware that the leadership of this bank has been embroiled on mischief of leadership. Will you be able to come clearly and firm that you will be able to stand with Kenyans to clear this mischief? Thank you.
And answer those three: Owen Bayer, Robert Mbui, and
Stephen
Mole.
Through Mr. Speaker, the issue of who is the current chair for East Africa Community, I have read it is His Excellency, the President for Southern Sudan, Salva Kiir. And I think the arrangements of choosing is basically interpresidential arrangements, internal. So I may not really have details of it, but I wouldn't mind searching over it because I was not anticipating a situation where I would get into the finer details. On the side of the diplomacy on the political federation, on what is being contested within the borders of member states. Actually, the issue is having what I started with by saying every country has their own sovereignty and their political interests. The agenda to maintain the political federation here is at least the member states having the policies through the legislative arm of East Africa legislation or assembly to come up with law that will give every state member an opportunity to implement what has been agreed for the good of the community. I know it is sometimes hard, but again, mediating, consulting, talking to them and their member states and all the key partners that add value to the political federation, be it within the countries of the member states or not, they need to talk to each other, they need to embrace, they need to be facilitated for the full realization. So for me, partnership, networking is very critical in enhancing the political federation. I know sometimes they would slow things simply because one decision arrived at may not be the decision that would be fast-tracked to be implemented. But with the proper consultation, continuous dialogue, continuous arbitration can bring us to a solution that would enhance the political federation. Now, on the side of...
Honorable Speaker.
Yes, Owen.
Just, I don't know whether the nominee understood me. You know, there is envisaged a political federation of the East African states, including a currency. And including, you know, bringing it together and forming a state of East Africa. You know? And there are certain steps that have been taken towards
Owen, I think you should also be fair to the nominee. There are three different things.
Yes.
There is common customs or customs union. There is common market. There is common currency, political federation. Each is a separate engagement. So if we are talking about monetary union, don't mix it with political federation and vice versa.
Speaker, what I was trying to do when I mentioned the countries is to show that we are bringing together the East African. How far are we in that protocol, the political one, if you have any information about it?
In terms of political federation?
Yes.
I think because the most that leads is the political goodwill from the member states. So, and if we look at where we are right now, at least I see we are making progress as an East African community. Compared to what may have collapsed, the East Africa community back 1977, the things that are there right now are structures. And if you look at the progress we've made so far, which I believe is out of political goodwill, if not so, of course, not in a big way, but even enhancing an agreement to have the legislative arm in Arusha is a step forward. If you look at the way we have had the secretariat on board, it is progress. If you look at now even the Court of Justice in Arusha, it is progress. At least the progress that is headed to the right direction. I know we've not achieved so much, but I assure you, at least we are beginning and we are headed to the good direction.
Question? Question from Robert Mbui.
On my degree,
yes.
On academics.
Yes, the gaps in your...
Yes, I can explain. Actually, what happened is I took a course in certificate in a place called Kobujo Social Development Training Institute that was examined by Kenya National Examination Council. And if I were not, the fact that I have no diploma means I would have reduced, if I had diploma, I would have reduced my degree years to 3. And because I didn't have a diploma, I had again to go for a degree for 4 years. 1 extra year has been added because they said we cannot be, if I would have gone for diploma, I would have gone for a degree for 3 years. And because I went for 4 years, that is now meant to take care of the diploma that was not there.
Stop cheering the nominee.
Through the chair on taxes. Actually, I know it is very sensitive right now in the Republic of Kenya to talk about taxes. Kenyans will come on you, and they will come for you. What I mean here is I was seeing an alternative way of sustaining the development and the activities within the East Africa community. As okay, of course there is remittance by each member state as a source of revenue to sustain the activities of the community. But again, I also said in the situation where now some member states are not complying by paying, remitting, that would mean there is a gap in terms of activities to be implemented. And by virtue of that gap, I gave a window. I said, even if I never said, okay, the tax that would, I said a small tax, of course now assuming it is going to be agreed upon because one proposal cannot be implemented by one state. Even if you give a proposal of tax and then it goes before member states and they say no, it will still not pass. But I was looking at a way of making alternative source of funding for for East Africa community as a proposal. But that doesn't mean it's going to be taken as it is because I'm only proposing as one member if appointed. It will still be discussed by the others. If they will find it appropriate, it will be adopted. If they will not find it appropriate, it will not get anywhere. So that one was the reason why I was just suggesting need, without really looking at the tax, the need for alternative source of funding. The other, through the chair, the other question is the ministry importance in, sorry, come up again, sir.
The importance of Kenya being in the community.
Oh, through the speaker, I feel Kenya is among the states that started spearheading the need to have East Africa community on board. The benefits are when you are a lead in a particular federation that seems to be big enough, one, it gives a country an image, positive image of wanting to grow itself and wanting to grow the neighborhood and wishing the neighborhood well in terms of economic, in terms of trade, in terms of the currency, in terms of the language, that is togetherness and the sense of belonging. That is positive in itself. Number two, when we enhance the collaboration on market, when collaborate in terms of policy, when we work around things that would make Kenyan labor to move around the member states, if we look at things that would make some legislation to come, that in itself will market Kenyans in this manner. Our commodities, our supply will have an external market. Again, our technocrats that are not well absorbed in the country and they can get an exit of getting to these countries through their membership to be employed. Even the constraints that they undergo in terms of licenses to work, those documents, by virtue of being a Kenyan, and Kenya is a member state of East Africa community, that will give leverage to that Kenyan to just work around the continent, the membership states, and get employed, look for a job. I mean, Kenya will benefit.
Yes, the question of, pardon? Your net worth.
The question of net worth.
Oh, my net worth. Through the speaker, I want to take you back to who I am. I am from a pastoral community that is still rich in culture. There is nothing about me, if you read that word properly. It is not mine. There is nothing under my name. But because the culture allows us to live in the manner we live, in terms of communal life, family life, that worthiness is not cash. It is the property we have. As I said, I'm married. My husband has worked in several places. He's been outside the country for 17 years. So I am telling you, this has nothing, even if you were to revisit when they were gotten, it has nothing to do with county government. It has nothing to do with, this is the efforts and the humanitarian salary of somebody. So it is a family worth. Family worth, and you know, by virtue of being from that area, family worth is equally a community worth. Because when you have to support the neighborhood, you have to support your other relatives, you have to support. So basically, that well is not mine. It is our net. Our net worth.
Go ahead. Go to Mule. The question by Honorable Mule.
Is that on common market protocol?
Yes, it is on the common market protocol based on the free movement of labor. And the second one was regarding the East African Development Bank, on the investment of this bank within the East African community, and particularly how Kenya has benefited on this bank being one of the shareholders of the East African community, and the leadership of that bank, and the assets the bank owns, because we know the bank is based in Uganda. How do we benefit, and how much have we benefited from this institution, Kenya being one of the majority shareholders?
Through the speaker, sir, on the East Africa Community Common Market Protocol labor, actually, this movement of the population, the experts.
Movement of labor, he's saying.
Yes.
Yes.
It's actually something that we need to enhance more. And in terms of benefiting Kenya, on the side of the bank, this one I'm telling you, if you are going to appoint me, I will get into this to make sure I get to the finer details. Because right now...
Don't trap yourself. That bank is not under your jurisdiction.
But the question...
It's under the jurisdiction of the Treasury. So don't trap yourself.
It's okay, Mr. Speaker, but you know...
It falls and it carries an East African name, but it's under the jurisdiction of the Treasury.
That is why I'm saying, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker, if it gets to where I can answer this question, I would rather have all the technocrats in finance and economics to advise on this one, because as at now, I am not well equipped with what to answer.
Good. Now, Raso, you'll take 4. Raso, Shuria, Mishi, and Rahab.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Beatrice, the ASAL constitute 70% of the Kenyan landmass. There are currently 23 counties that are considered to be ASAL, but 10 are classical ASAL and they fall under FCDC. And the major problem in ASAL is water, scarcity, and food security. If the House approves your nomination, what measures are you likely to undertake, or intervention measures, that those counties are likely to enjoy the same benefit as the rest of Kenyans? And remember, Honorable Lesuda asked you about relief, whether it is sustainable. But I want to add a rider to that. Should those Kenyans who live in ASAL be perennially accustomed or tied to relief food, or there must be something that the government, both at the county level and the national level, should do to ensure that those people are safe, whether there is flood or there is drought? Secondly, you worked in the county. Those of us sitting in the National Assembly, we feel that whereas the counties in the urban or fairly developed areas are doing extremely well with devolution. The counties in the ASAL are not doing as much. Tell us what is any success story maybe you can tell us from Turkana, or if there are problems, what are these problems that these counties are still tied in the past? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yes, Sharia.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I just have two questions for the nominee. I think one you somehow mentioned it, but I just want to ask. The East African community is built on 4 pillars. Would you be able to mention them? And my question number 2, the ministry that you've been appointed for has always been reactive to natural disasters like floods or drought. What measures would you put in place to make the ministry proactive rather than reactive on natural disasters? I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Mheshimiwa Mish Mbogo.
Thank you, Honorable Chairman. Honorable Chairman, my question to our nominee. I've known Beatrice Askul in the women movement, advocating for the rights of women. But away from the rights of women, I want to take you to the youth movements and the rights of youth, knowing that it is over 60% of the East African population are youth, and that is under 30 years. Most of the time they've been complaining of isolation, marginalization, and not being included in decision-making processes. Now, in case you are approved, what strategy are you going to use to engage youth in regional development? How will you ensure their voices are included in East Africa program on job creation and skill development? And also, how will you collaborate with youth councils, institutions like universities, across East African community to amplify young voices in regional integration? My last question, it is on the issue of security, especially for our fishermen in Migigo Island, knowing that we are using that resource among East African community. There have been some conflicts between Uganda and Kenya. How are you going to involve East African community in resolving such conflicts? Thank you, Honorable Chairman.
Rahab.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. My question to the nominee. The building of dams has been pursued previously as a way of addressing water shortage and mitigating the impact of drought in ASO areas. However, the projects have often been marred by corruption and argument of non-viability. These include Garana Kuraru, for example. What lessons can we learn from this project, and how best can the ministry facilitate ASO areas to have access water and food security? The other question is about the delays in freight clearance and how we normally get delays in the borders when the trucks are coming from the neighboring countries. Thank you.
You can answer those, nominee.
Mr. Speaker, the last question, I didn't get it from the honorable member. The last one.
You know, Beatrice, for example, when people go to Tanzania to buy goods, sometimes they can spend 5 days or even a week trying to clear their goods. What are you going to do about it, fast track that?
Okay, thank you. Let me start from our point. The process of clearing products and people's movement at the borders is true, takes a bit of time. And I contribute this to the poor infrastructure that takes so long. I mean, if, for example, you are moving goods from Kenya through the border, not all infrastructure facilitates the process of moving these goods. And I also see a situation where we have the challenge of corruption along the way, which must also need to be dealt with to reduce people pushing others to pay for what they would not have paid. And thirdly, I also feel like we need to put an IT kind of a digitalized system that would fast track the movement of goods and people from one place to the other. And that would fast track, because once the system is made that way, it is faster. than where sometimes you find at the border, you go more manual. You wait one track to be done, a lot of paperwork involved. But if you digitalize these systems, it will fast track the processes of movement of goods. And then on the side of the dams, true, there are issues around the dams that were meant to be done, the ones you've quoted, and the water system not being in place this far. Actually, what I would suggest is when there is a need and the spirit of seeing development in a country for the sake of realizing needs of the people being attended to, actually it is prudent for an individual to make sure what you've advertised actually has begun, and once allocation is put, it must be started. And if the whole project is multi-billion, I would advise where you go the first way. You take this phase first. Once that phase is complete, you go to another phase. At least by doing that, you will get value for money per phase. Than where you put one project, and maybe in the course of the many phases being started, there are likelihood of others being affected, and yet maybe you may have released all the money. For me, I think we need to be truthful to the process of procurement. We need to be truthful to the process of value for money. We need to be truthful to the realization of complete projects, so that at the end of the day, the issues of Kenya are attended, the suffering of Kenyans is reduced. Now, the other point, through Mr. Speaker, of Migingo Island. I have read about Migingo Island issue between Uganda and Kenya, and I believe the best way here, in fact, where it had reached, where now securities are not taxing the fishermen from the other state partner, was actually done away with. And for me, what I would suggest here, I'm subject to correction, what I would suggest here is where all the two states stakeholders that may play a role in this must converge to have a discussion on a better way forward. And to some extent, I would suggest that we have a legislative arm and also have Court of Justice in Tanzania, where they would take the lead role in mediating this issue between Kenya and Uganda, and also getting other non-interested parties, non-partisan, also come to arbitrate, so that at least at the end of the day, resolution is found and no citizens suffer. Through the chair, on the question of on the youth, Mheshimiwa Mishi, on the youth movement and how the ministry will get them involved in the regional development. Actually, in every population of any state, the youth are part of the population. And I think it is time we come up with a specific affirmative action, just like we did with the women affirmative action policy, that enhances inclusion of women by all means. I think where we are headed now is to have an independent and a deliberate policy that will incorporate the young population of this country, the young professionals in this country, into every activity, not mine alone, not the Ministry of East Africa Community alone, even the other ministries. We just put a deliberate policy that would enhance their involvement, so that they also bring the young expertise, they also bring their bit of, as they also learn from the structure itself. So I think we need to do a deliberate policy on this. On the side of the pillars, there is, of course, there is enhancing the trade. There is the issue of the protocol that pertains to immigration. I've forgotten that one, but I'll remember. The poor infrastructure, these are part of the pillars. We also have the political federation as part of it. We also have the monetary policy being part of it. So these are the pillars that are supposed, and the trade and the market actually, as part of the pillars that need to be enhanced. And of course, there is also the issue of the language, where now people will move freely and communicate a language that will facilitate the fast tracking of what is supposed to be put to enhance the full realization of East Africa Community. The other one is the county government.
Yes, Sharia.
I think she did well. She did 50%, which is good. The political federation and monetary. The other two are the customs union and the common market.
Yes.
Just to guide her.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Whether there is, through the Mr. Speaker, sir, there is a point that talks about whether Turkana County is a sample county in terms of effects of devolution as an ASAL area. Actually, I can speak here comfortably that for us, the Turkana community, devolution was like our independence. In as far as the rest of the areas were talking of their independence, 1963, I'm telling you the independence of Turkana County started in 2013. Because the infrastructure that others were supposed to pick from, at least they had a background and they had to start from a particular level. In Turkana County, in water, in health, in education, in security, all those basic needs of a human being. Actually, we had to start from the point 1, including the nursery schools, infrastructural for schools, infrastructural for health facilities. We all had to begin. That is why, in as far as when Turkana was said to be receiving billions, I'm telling you what is billions in a beginning point where you had totally nothing. So for us, as people said, the beginning and the independence of Turkana County began in 2013. It is real. It's very practical. And even right now, we still need more. Because for a very long time since independence, they had never gotten attention from anybody, maybe because of the distance. Sometimes the closer you are to the network at the center, the better you are. When you are far away in terms of even being far in infrastructure. So I think Turkana case may be different. But on the side of solution to food reliefs and their safety, in terms of the disasters we receive, as I said, just like I've spoken on the youth, I think we need to do a deliberate attempt or a move or a framework through which we will make sure now all the partners in the Republic of Kenya that act or respond on emergencies put their resources together, plus the ministries concerned, and come up with one concrete thing that would be a permanent solution to these things. And again, being a reactive ministry, a reactive network, that would mean we are only waiting till the bad moment comes. That means we ignore the reports that are supposed to be giving a warning. There are institutions that give warning to what's likely to happen. But we wait too long till this thing happens, we lose lives, we lose livestock. Then when we come, that's the time we come to appear like we are pushing to do something possible. I think even us, as the victims of these disasters, need to push the partners that are within us. I know most ASAL areas have the biggest number of NGOs. I think it is time we put a framework that will make them now think permanently in a solution-based way.
Vicaria, have you? Vicaria, we'll have one more of a member who came in late.
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Vicaria David. I come from Nakuru Town East constituency. Honorable Chair, I think the things I wanted to ask has been asked, but I think it is important for us to put emphasis to the nominee that had an opportunity of going for a climate change conference in Arusha the other day. Honorable Speaker, when I reached Namanga, if you see the queue of vehicles from Kenya vis-a-vis the other side that are coming in, then you realize there is a problem. And I think it is important for the nominee to take charge and cognizant of that fact, that we can't have a smaller queue on the other side coming this side, and then a longer queue going on the other side. Now, this goes again to what Majority Leader has been saying. Maybe we need more information to the people in the transport industry and what we actually need for us to fast track our clearance at the border point. It is very unfortunate, Honourable Speaker, even when you go the other side, we were stopped. I think they just see a registration of a Kenya number. You are stopped at every police place where they are on the road, asking for fire extinguishers, and these things are the things that need to be taught to these people, because the people are going into the transport sector every now and then. Maybe the nominee needs to fasten that and be able to understand and assist our trading, our partners who are doing trade in the respective. Secondly, Honourable Speaker, we have been with you in a few of the interparliamentary games, where we talk of the tightening, widening, and strengthening our partnership. But it's only about sports and we go. And nothing much between interaction between the East African community on some very important issues that affect us. Of course, maybe it could be, it is important also maybe to have some session where members of parliament can sit together and exchange ideas on how to do trade, on how, and we had one of, in the football section, Honorable Chair, is where we were talking about what the president, actually that is what is happening. The president has been insisting on this technical subject trainees graduation and the effect that it is having in Uganda. And I think that is what we need to push more as a community for us to be able to, and including, Honorable Chair, you know, the Gen Zs has reminded us to remember our national anthem. They're saying if we can be able to say our national anthem, all the three stanzas. And when I went to look at that, it speaks volume. The anthem for East African community anthem, again, is
you ask
important.
a question or making a speech?
I'm just a comment. Thank you.
Yes, Mary.
It's a slight addition. Honorable nominee, I think the issue of queuing of vehicles along our border is a very serious one. If you go to Busia border or Malaba, and sometimes there's a queue all the way to Bungoma, and it is
Not
causing
to
a lot.
Bungoma, to Tarbo.
To Tarbo, even to
65
Tarbo.
kilometers of
And it has caused a lot of disaster.
yes.
We've lost lives through road accidents, and it is really bad. I think that is one area, Honorable nominee, that you may have to look into and find out what is causing, that is if you are approved, what is causing it and what could be the permanent solutions so that we do not have vehicles queuing along the borders and causing a lot of other problems. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, it's true what Honorable Mary Mas is saying. Big problem that keep vehicles queuing kilometers and kilometers in both Malaba and Busia. But I saw the other day somewhere that Busia County had put up a very big, they're building a very big yard near the border there to park the vehicles. But anyway, I agree with her, this is a problem.
But nominee, if you get there, you know, building a huge parking for trucks is not a solution.
True.
We are talking of movement of goods and services to improve trade. Now, if you go and park your truck at the border for 3 days, is that a solution? It isn't. Because every time that truck stays there for 2 days, 3 days, is a loss to the economy. So go ahead and answer that. What Gikari has asked you before.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think...
Mr. Speaker, there is also this project that was done in the borders of one border stop, where one stop border solution posts, where both countries are supposed to have people in one place so that fastens the movement of goods and people. I don't know why it's not
functioning. We have two, Namanga and Malaba.
Okay.
Yes.
No, even Hispania in Migori.
Yes.
The Speaker is one.
Okay. And Moyale, I think, and Lunga Lunga. Go on.
Through Mr. Speaker, I feel I've also been part of this challenge myself some time back, where a truck can take a whole week to be cleared. But now, at least now that it is becoming to our realization as an assembly, I think we need to, all of us to put our brains together and put all the ministries concerned into need to fast track the process of moving goods and services within this border, within the shortest time possible. So that again, we talk of infrastructure development that would fast track, and then the technology that would fast track these processes, and then we talk of the human resource that would use these facilities to fast track the movement of goods and services. For me, it is a team that needs the other partners in the infrastructure ministry, in the trade ministry, in finance ministry, to really come up and put our heads together and make sure something better comes out of it.
Thank you, nominee. I'll ask, yes, George?
Thank you. Can I ask if, on behalf of the public?
Go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. This is a comment from a member of the public. That EAC docket is a very sensitive docket, and I'm not sure the nominee really gets it. If you approve the nominee, would she be prepared to learn a lot more about it? That is the question from a member of the public.
Through the Mr. Speaker, actually where I'm coming from, as at now, or as of now, I have been, since the time of appointment, I was able to only have 4 days to prepare myself, grasp all about the ministry as an external person. As soon as I'm going to be approved by this committee, trust you me, that tell the whoever has written that, I have what it takes. I'm from a community that has faced so many issues and have always gotten a solution to them. So as soon as I'm on board, I'll do my best. I'm young enough in terms of the energy to implement, to move, to learn, to share the experience, to get advice where I need be, to engage the technical people, to get me done in this. So I trust you me, it is well. To assure that person he is in safe place, is in safe hands.
Nominee, yes, Russell?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a quick one. Somebody is asking if the House nominates you, it confirms your nomination, you'll be handling East Africa and the ASAL. What their fear is, one is likely to suffer, because these are 2 dockets back to back. Will you just confirm to them that that will not happen? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Anybody would be listening to us would assume that because much of the questions here are on East Africa community. But in the situation where we had to balance 6, 6, 5, 5, I would have attended. And again, as somebody who is at the policy level, we have already structures at ASAL level that would implement ASAL issues. We have the one for East Africa community that would settle on that issue. So I will only be balancing a team that is already on board, a team that has an expertise. It is not me alone who will implement it. So it's because of the amount of questions here that somebody is saying the ASAL may suffer, and yet I even come from ASAL. It's even bad to make that assumption. Maybe the mode of questions is what has made somebody to believe maybe ASAL may suffer. To assure him or her, I am an ASAL person.
But remember, nominee,
yes,
that you have not been nominated because you are from an ASAL part of Kenya. You've been nominated because you're a Kenyan, and you must demonstrate suitability to handle this docket on behalf of the people of Kenya, not the ASALs. Okay?
True, Mr. Speaker, I was only answering because they said ASAL may suffer, so I was assuring the person that it's okay.
Now, there are some issues from the public before I come to 1 or 2 questions. One person asks, given the grades that you got at secondary school, how did you end up studying for a degree?
I answered it.
Yes, I'm just reading to you what the public is asking. Okay. The second one is, given the recent suspension of Uganda's milk products from entering the Kenyan market due to disputes over quality and standards, what legislative amendments or policies would you advocate to resolve such trade barriers and strengthen economic ties within the East Africa? Part of this falls within the trade docket, but you can answer. The second one, with the increased security concerns along the Kenya-Somalia border, particularly with the resurgence of Al-Shabaab activities, how do you leverage existing legislation like the National Security Council Act and propose new laws to enhance security collaboration among East African countries while ensuring free movement of people and goods? The next one, the disparities in economic development between Kenya and some EAC member states, such as Burundi and South Sudan, are significant. Would you propose any legislative measures to ensure equitable distribution of resources from shared regional projects such as those stipulated under the EAC protocol, on the establishment of the East African Monetary Union. Well, there are many. Answer those first.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I feel the issues that are raised here does not only apply to my ministry, if appointed, it also applies to other ministries. Like if you speak of milk, milk is under food production. It's also under livestock. It cuts across trade. It's also part of finance. So once we are on board, if appointed, or if approved by this committee, those are the issues that we will engage all our technocrats in agriculture, in finance, in any other relevant department to come up with a concrete policy and a framework that would guide. And the same applies to security that is there in Somalia. The Ministry of Defense will be involved. The Ministry of Internal Affairs will be involved. So all those stakeholders will be part of the solution to that. And the same affects the disparity of economic states, where we'll also have a Ministry of Finance, the technocrats in finance, economists in finance, will all, and the economists will all come and put their brains together and come up with a concrete solution. And of course, a way forward through that consultative forum.
Two more. Somebody asks, with counties like Turkana, Marsabit, and Wajir facing severe drought, what legislative measures do you propose to institutionalize drought response mechanisms, such as amendments to the National Drought Management Authority Act, to ensure long-term food security in these regions? The other one that I can pick out, because some are repetitions, is resource-based conflicts over water and pasture, such as those witnessed in the Turkana and West Pokot border regions, have escalated due to drought. What would you consider, would you consider proposing legislation for community-based natural resource management and conflict resolution frameworks, possibly through amendments to the Land Act to formalize resource sharing agreements? Can you answer that? Somebody is asking about the stalled Kainuk Bridge in Turkana. I think that's not your docket. Go on.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On counties like Turkana and Marsabit, and amendment on response to drought, actually what is happening is, as I said earlier, we need a deliberate and team-based solution to these recurring issues, so that we put ways of a framework that would enhance food production, enhance water harvests, enhance alternative livelihoods, enhance value addition to this community, so that we reduce the effect of drought within the acts. And that one means all the ministries concerned, all the partners concerned, all the stakeholders concerned must put their brains together and come up with a long-lasting solution to what has been recurring. Now, on conflict of water and under pasture along Turkana and the other areas, the pastoral areas, actually true. If we borrow an initiative that we went one time when I was a CC for Turkana to the Uganda, and we found a very big dam called Kobebe that is supplying water all year round. I think it is time we adopt a solution that would run the citizens of this country with their livelihood all year round, in the sense that the dams are put, this water that is just running around, the water that is flowing down would be captured somewhere where it can be utilized by pastoralists, it can be utilized for pasture, it can also be utilized for food production by the very communities that are vulnerable when this strikes. So I think for me, it needs back to stakeholders engagement, consultation of all the key actors in this field to make sure we put a long-lasting solution to what the communities are suffering from. And also in situation where we go cross-border, in terms like when the community moves from this area to the other area looking for pasture, we need, as an institution of government, to move ahead of our citizens and lobby for safety and lobby for these things, so that when they encroach those zones, they are not attacked or they are not rebelled, causing deaths. So
Good. Let me ask you one question, nominee, or two. Do you believe in East African integration?
As at now, I believe because it's about the impression. In the sense that if...
What do you mean impression?
Sometimes people tend to judge a particular thing before they get into it. I think where there's a deliberate attempt, Mr. Speaker, to have it realized, we will all get this realized. Because the parties that are there are just within the neighborhood. We can't avoid the neighborhood. We will at any time engage the neighborhood. So for that matter, and for you to be peaceful, your neighbor must be peaceful. For you to grow economically, your neighbor must be growing. So, and because there's a cross-cutting issues, these crossing issues must be put together for a full realization of East Africa Community Federation.
If you find favor and become our minister or CS in charge of East Africa, we already have protocols for a customs union, for a free market, and a protocol for free movement of people, goods, and services. Take people. If you go to our courts today, every single day you'll find Ugandans being charged for being in Kenya illegally. You go to Uganda, Kenyans are in jail in Uganda for entering Uganda illegally. Tanzania, same thing, and all over. If you find favor and become our CS, what are you going to do to help achieve the implementation of the protocol on free movement of people, goods, and services, particularly people, so that you do not cross into a country where you have a protocol for free movement and you are bundled and thrown into jail for being in that country illegally?
Mr. Speaker, if I win the favor of this committee and be appointed as a CS for East Africa Community, the issue of custom union and free movement are within the 4 pillars of East Africa Community. So, and having it as a pillar must also embrace the spirit of the will within the member states to implement anything that has been agreed upon. So for effective implementation of this, effective realization of these pillars, then every member state must make a deliberate attempt within their own political governance to make sure these things are implemented to the best of these, of the people who are crossing, to the best of the business that's being carried across the border. So for me, I feel laws must be, a legal framework must be put on board. The infrastructure that's supposed to be facilitative must be put in place.
The legal framework is already there.
Then the deliberate intentions to implement from the partner states must also be negotiated, because it is one thing to pass, it is the other thing to get the political will of a country to implement what has been passed. So I think it is a matter of lobbying, matter of consulting, matter of arbitrating if possible, to make sure what has been passed is implemented to the letter.
A small 1 or 2 mundane questions to you. Have you ever been adversely mentioned in any integrity-related reports or investigations?
No, I haven't.
Do you hold any leadership position in any political party in Kenya?
As it is, no.
As it was?
Yeah, but I resigned.
Okay. Tell us your net worth.
It's 100 million.
100 million, which you said is family
for
wealth.
All of us.
It's for all of us, including me.
Yes, if you are
Okay. Okay, nominee. Your papers have been checked against what we have. They have been found in order. And the few memoranda that were there against you, actually, in fact, only one, and you responded, so we release you to go back to your duties.
Mr. Speaker, there is the bit of the well that I need to clarify a bit on livestock.
It is not an issue. We are okay.
Okay. So, Mr. Speaker, I would want to appreciate your guidance in moderating and protecting me. I would also want to appreciate the the mutual conversation we've had with the committee. And if Almighty God that began with me will give you favor to see me through in this, I'm telling you, committee, you will be writing history in this Kenya. You will be appointing the first Turkana woman since independence. So please be part of the history.
As we look forward to the possibility of writing that history, I want to constantly encourage you. You are not going to be a minister because you are Turkana. You are going to be a minister because if we find favor, your competence and your ability to serve each and every Kenyan from Vanga to Kibish, from Lamu to Malaba, everywhere in this country. And now you'll go beyond. Okay. You must contribute towards the integration of East Africa. Some of us believe, dream, and live East African integration.
Thank you.
Thank you. The sergeant will show you the way out. Have a good day. Yes. Members, you have saved 10 minutes, and that is the time that you'll have for your short break as they rearrange the room, and you agreed to go and have something out there. So let's go and do that.